Welcome back to the Rundown Podcast. My name is Abe Hicks, joined by my main man, Dylan Kearns. We are back better than ever. The MLB season has started. There is so much going on. We're going to dive deep into a lot of things that are in the news going on in the baseball world today. But Dylan, how are you doing?
Fantastic, man. Baseball's back. I love it. I've been throwing stuff on FanDuel. I've been watching baseball. Dinger Tuesday is going to be here. And, there's just so much going on in the baseball world. Lots of injuries. We'll get into that. I mean, there's just what a start to the year. I love it. I'm so excited. I've been watching every game. I've been reading every box score, every game. I love baseball so much, especially in April.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, hey, let's get right into this. One of the teams in baseball has been a laughing stock the past few years, and that team is the Oakland Athletics, run by John Fisher, who is the owner of the Oakland Athletics. And last week it came out that they will be moving to Sacramento. Right? There's been news last year that came out and say, "Hey, we're moving to Vegas," but they have a stadium issue there in Oakland, so therefore they'll be moving to Sacramento. It's still a fiasco. It's still a mess. Dylan, what's your assessment of what's going on for the Oakland A's and John Fisher?
I mean, this right here is just asinine with the way that they've been running ship. You look at the Oakland Athletics, and I see a situation where there could have been so much greatness. You saw the early days of the Athletics, the Dennis Eckersley, let's call him Don, Dennis Eckersley, the Reggie Jacksons, the players that have always been a staple for that organization. Ricky Henderson, of course, they named that terrible field after him. So, there's so much going on with that organization that really stinks now when you look at it long term that they're going to lose out on that. And I'm sure the Oakland A's in the 90s and stuff like that. And you got to think, just a few years ago, this was a team with Bob Melvin that made it to the postseason many years. They won over 90 games, and they had people kind of showing up when they're on their runs. So, a lot has gone downhill. This is a ball club that, of course, has had spending problems for as long as we can remember, if you go back to the Moneyball days when that movie was produced. But you look at the Oakland Athletics, this is just a complete and utter disaster and mismanagement of funds, mismanagement of locations. And this goes a lot about what to say to the city of Oakland. They lose 3 teams in the span of, 6 years?
Yeah.
The Warriors go to San Francisco, the Raiders go to Vegas, and now the Oakland A's are working their way to Sacramento/Vegas. They're just going to be the Athletics for a little bit.
Yeah, I definitely agree. A lot of mismanagement on a lot of cases here, and I immediately go to the mistreatment of the fans. I feel awful for the Oakland A's fans. I saw a picture the other day of a postseason game at the Coliseum, and this idea that the Oakland A's being in a small market, it doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, they may be in a smaller market, but those fans love the A's. They love coming to support when they have the backing of ownership that wants to put a competitive roster on the field. I mean, who was the player they just sent down last week? Why? Why? It's the fans are getting the owners are spitting John Fisher. They're spitting right into the Oakland A's, right into their faces. No disregard for their life at all. And with this move, it makes me think, will they even get to Vegas? Part of me thinks that they're supposedly moving there in 2027. I don't think they get to Vegas. Something's going to happen. The moving has been rough already. I simply don't think I see them in Vegas. What do you think about that?
I think I believe so. I mean, I think that there's still a plan in place to get there. They're going to work their way to Vegas at some point. This Sacramento thing is a placeholder. And I feel great for the city of Sacramento. One of my buddies lived out there, said it's a great ballpark, and fans will show up there in Sacramento. They love their baseball. So definitely an opportunity for them to get some eyes on it. And heck, they're probably going to draw more in a 10,000 seat ballpark in Sacramento than they would in that big old mansion in Oakland that no one goes to.
Yeah, it's a joke. Like I said, we feel awful for the Oakland A's fans. Hopefully John Fisher can sell the team and actually they can get some ownership that will care about the well-being of that fan base. Moving on, like we mentioned, the start of the season, we got some teams who start off really hot. The Yankees, the Red Sox, the Pirates, the Guardians, the Braves. They all got off to really hot starts, and some teams that got off to cold starts. The Marlins only winning their first game yesterday. The Mets off to a really slow start. Dylan, what team really stood out to you, whether their performance was good or bad?
I think with the good side, I'm going to talk about the Cleveland Guardians. I think the Cleveland Guardians have been a ball club that you really look at this year as a team that's what look at their record so far this season. They're 7-2. They're winning ball games, and you look at this lineup and you just want to yak. Looking at some of the players that they have in there, like you have a certain amount of ball players. You look Esteban Florial's in the outfield. You look at Andres Jimenez. You look at some of these players in the lineup that maybe aren't great names, but they still get it done. So they're 7-2 to start the year. I think a lot of that can be attributed to a weak schedule to start the year. They went to Oakland. They played they did win a couple games against the Twins, a series there. Last one rained out on Sunday, but the ball club of the Guardians look pretty solid right now. This is a team also won a postseason series just 2 years ago.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to side with. This is hard for me to say, but the Boston Red Sox have surprised me so far this year. I think nobody really saw them. A lot of people saw them actually as a bottom feeder in the AL, and they come off, 7-2. I believe is that their record, 7-2 or 7-3. Let me see. So maybe 7-3, right? Playing the Angels, and I mean, I think something that's really stood out to me from the Red Sox is that lineup has been smashing. A very left-handed dominant lineup, but man, they've been producing very well. Is that sustainable? I don't know. We'll see. But just my initial reaction for how they're starting off the season, very, very impressed with the Red Sox.
Yeah, they've been impressive.
Yeah. So moving on, big topic in the baseball atmosphere is a lot of big time pitchers are getting hurt and put on the shelf of Tommy John. And nobody really knows what's going on. Um, a lot of people are worried about this. Dylan, what's your reaction with I mean, guys like Spencer Strider, Shane Bieber, Jonathan Loizica, Yuri Perez, they all are shut down for the rest of the year due to Tommy John. Dylan, what do you think is going on here?
I think the increase in velo and all of this from just last year has really hurt what's going on around the world of baseball. You look at these star pitchers. Garrett Cole starts the year banged up, and then after that, it sort of just turned downhill. You don't forget Lucas Giolito; he gets an injury. So there's so many injured pitchers out there. Justin Steele, the ham, he can't really control that. But I think in terms of the elbow issues, it goes back to the velos these guys are throwing with this year. Maybe that's a lazy take in my part, but I think it is something. The mechanics, Strider, you look at the way he throws the ball, it almost like he's throwing his entire arm off instead of using those. He's got great legs, and like you should drive through the baseball in terms of pitching, use that back leg and use your mechanics. But instead, he's using a lot of elbow, a lot of torque with the way he throws the baseball. So I think there's a lot of that. A lot of the mechanics can be studied, and I think pitching coaches are really going to have to start to implement something like that. But in terms of this year, maybe it's the quick ramp up and getting the year started. They know a couple of years, about a decade ago, they would start first week of April. Here, we're starting in the last week of March, so maybe it's an earlier ramp up, and they're not really feeling it. And the new way of baseball with the injuries, the way they're taking place because of the high velos and stuff like that, that could definitely have an impact on if a player is going to stay healthy or not.
Yeah, I think you're spot on here. I don't think this year is any different than any other year. I don't think this year is some phenomenon. The only difference is that the names are bigger. We know why pitchers are getting more Tommy John surgeries more than ever. It's because current pitchers are throwing way harder than anybody in the history of baseball. The data is there. 20, 30 years ago, guys were not pumping 100 miles per hour on a consistent basis. It is a max effort for 5 to 6 innings every fifth day. How often do we see finesse pitchers going down? We rarely see it. The human arm is not meant to throw that hard in that fashion for a long period of time. That is not sustainable. So I know a lot of people are blaming the pitch clock here with a quicker turnaround. And I'm just like, guys, no, 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 no. Guys are throwing way harder than historically they've been doing. That's the culprit. That's the issue here. And I mean, we can go even a few layers deeper here with going to high school and travel ball. Guys playing, little kids playing 5 games in a weekend. Throwing their arms out. Then I think there's a lot of consuming factors here. I don't think the main culprit should be the pitch clock. There's a lot of things going on, and I think everybody involved, the adults in the baseball community, we really need to talk about this and figure this out.
Love that. That's a phenomenal take. Going back to those kids, those weekends, they're throwing their arm out. All these coaches that wanted to be MLB All Stars are nowhere even sniffed college ball. Are out here trying to win weekend tournaments with these 10-year-olds, thinking that that's the end all be all when their health is the most important factor.
Yeah, no doubt. We're spot on there. Spot on there. All right, moving on to our next segment here. There were some guys who balled out last week, and there were some guys who we expected to ball out. Had a little bit of a cold start, but we're gonna start off with our hot players who had a great start to the new year. Dylan, who's that one guy for you who balled out for you?
I look at Spencer Steer with the Minnesota, or not the Minnesota Twins. Sorry, that's the take I'm giving here. With the Cincinnati Reds, you look at Spencer Steer so far this season. He's putting up power numbers just like he did last year. Just a consistent ball player. He's hitting for a high averages. Not only that, he's driving the ball to all fields on a team where that right-handed stick's very, very potent in that lineup. And you go back to this trade. This is what I wanted to hit on. You look at what the Minnesota Twins gave up. Spencer Steer was big league ready when they made this trade. And they said, you know what? We need Tyler Mahle. We need him to come over and really enhance our rotation. Now, obviously, you go back to the injuries. That's what Mahle suffered from. He only pitched a few games for Minnesota, and they weren't great during his tenure with the Twinkies. So now you look at what Spencer Steer's bringing to the Cincinnati Reds. Last year, he hit over 260. I believe he was 272 range with 20 bombs. That's a very consistent ball player, not to mention his versatility. He's playing left field, third base, first base. He's DHing. Wherever you need Spencer Steer, he's been playing on this ball club. And on a team right now that's missing some of that with Matt McLain and missing Noelvi Marte with the off-the-field performance-enhancing drugs, you look at a player like Spencer Steer, just a very, very consistent ball player. I'm attracted to what he brings to the table. And I think it's very good. And I think it'll continue for not only this year, throughout the course of the season. I think Spencer Steer is going to be an all-star, and he's going to continue that throughout the course of his career.
Yeah, no, I really like that. I saw what he did over the weekend against the Mets with the 3-run shot to take the lead. Yeah, like you mentioned, he's a really good big league player who's finally having his moment to shine with the Cincinnati Reds, being able to play a multitude of positions, a very speedy first baseman. We don't often see that. So yeah, I'm in on Spencer Steer. Really like him. My guy is probably no surprise to you, Dylan. Anthony Volpe. Anthony Volpe has had a great start of the year. Volpe's batting .424 and 33 at bats, 1.092 OPS with 1 home run, 3 RBIs, and 2 stolen bases. This is probably the most impressive thing to me that I've seen from Anthony Volpe. Volpe has 7 whiffs in 153 pitches seen. That goes to show that he is more than disciplined at the plate. Last year, he was chasing out a lot of pitches outside the zone, and this year he's been locked in, working counts, trying to get on base. That Yankees lineup, they don't need more power there. They have plenty of that. They need guys to get on base, not strike out, and eventually getting themselves in scoring position with their speed. Anthony Volpe fits that perfectly. There's not a lot of pressure with him batting 6th or 7th in that Yankees lineup, so he's able to play freely. He's been able to showcase that so far. You mentioned Spencer Steer being an all-star. I think we could see Anthony Volpe being an all-star this year.
Love it. Love it. He's been on a tear.
Yeah. All right, so moving from hot to cold, my guy who's had a surprisingly cold start to the year, I got Ronald Acuna. Ronald Acuna has gotten a really cold start to the year. He's had 10 strikeouts, 4 hits, and 20 ABs. Small sample size, obviously, but as talented and as good as Ronald Acuna is, I fully expect him to turn it around and be a key player on an NL favorite Atlanta Braves team. And Matt Olson has been carrying that load. so far to the beginning of the year, which I feel like he doesn't get talked about enough. Maybe that's a different discussion for another day. But Ronald Acuna, slow start to the year. I don't know if he's still battling some injuries from last year, but I expect him to get it together and put up MVP type numbers like we've seen from Ronald Acuna in the past.
He'll turn it up. He always
Yeah.
does.
Yeah. Who's your guy?
I think for me, this is not good. This guy's brutal. And I'm gonna just take a whiff. I'm gonna take it a shot here. Spencer Torkelson is bad at baseball.
Number one pick, right? Former number one pick, right?
Number one pick, I believe
Yeah.
Auburn. Is that where he came from? Hold on, I got it right
Oh, no, no,
here.
no.
Arizona State.
Yeah,
Arizona State.
Arizona State,
Those
Sun
two
Devil.
mines. So you look at what Spencer Torkelson has done in his big league career. This was a guy who they're like bona fide hitter. Call him up right now. He can hit in the bigs. Well, it's a couple years later since being drafted, and guess what? He still can't hit in the bigs. He hasn't hit above 233 in his 3 years in the league. He's been sent down before. He had 600 at bats last year, struck out in 171 of those. So the strikeouts are there. A lot of swing and miss. I guess that is around league average when you factor in the amount of at bats. But still, this is a guy you can talk about his 31 home runs a season ago, but I do not like the average. I think he's very overrated. He's only hitting 184 this year, no bombs yet. And it's an early sample size here. It is a cold start to the season, exactly what the banner says down low, the lower third. But you look at what he's bringing to the table, and it's not much to this Tigers team that I had high expectations for, that a lot of people across baseball are expecting to take this step. And Torkelson needs to be a big part of that. And he's up there giving fans a nice breeze at the ballpark next to Javi Baez, just an extra fan in the stands. And it's not good. So Torkelson's really got to pick it up. He's only 24 years old. I think it's almost going to be make or break for him in the next year or two. I'll give him one more year this year and then maybe another next year before you decide if this guy's actually a big league baseball player or not. Because right now, I don't think he is.
Yeah, we're gonna have to agree with you there. I'm really surprised by the lack of performance from Spencer Torkelson. Kind of reminds me of Jared Kelnick, just somebody who everybody has high hopes about, but just can't turn the corner, can't figure it out. Big league pitching. Hopefully, we can see that turnaround from him. But we'll see. We'll see. Moving on to a group of players who have high hopes, alongside with Jared Kelnick and Spencer Torkelson. Uh, have you seen the Baltimore Orioles AAA team and what they've done to start the year? Um, Dang near MLB lineup, highlighted by Jackson Holliday, number one prospect in all of baseball, Kobe Mayo, Hester Kjerstad, and Kyle Stowers. All these guys are in the top 100 prospects in all of baseball. Crazy. Unfair to face if you are a pitcher in AAA. This lineup has scored 24 home runs, 74 runs, Dylan. That's 12 runs per game. What is going on with the Norfolk Tide?
The Norfolk Tides can beat the Oakland A's. Norfolk Tides can beat the Oakland A's. You mentioned 98 runs in 8 games. 98 runs across 8 games. That is absolutely crazy. Now, here's what I want to get into. I don't know if you truly understand the perplexities in this situation that you have with the Baltimore Orioles and their organization. That AAA team is so loaded that teams, I mean, there are a lot of teams in AAA that are loaded. You look at the Iowa Cubs with their prospects. You look at the Gwinnett Stripers, their
Yeah.
rotation. They got 5 big league starters in that
Yeah.
rotation. But I think with the Norfolk Tides here, the Orioles have too much talent. And I think at some point you're just going to have to get rid of some of that and get some bona fide pieces, whether it's bullpen help, another starter. You're going to have to get rid of it because there comes a time when these players are big league ready. And one player I really want to talk about is Heston Kjerstad. I mean,
It's a big bat.
what are we waiting on here?
Yeah.
He's 25 years old.
Yeah.
He's running out of time.
I remember he was at Arkansas. Big college bat. Yeah.
Yeah, another Arkansas dude. So, I mean, you look at this lineup and what they're putting out there every single time. With Jackson Holliday still in the minors, he doesn't belong there. He's better than probably 15 shortstops on MLB rosters right now. So I think it's just a disaster what they have going on there. And it's still nice for an organization side to realize that you have this much talent. But there comes a time, like I said, Kierstead, 25, he's going to be big. He is big league ready. You have to give him a shot. And it's not looking good in terms of their big league careers that they're potentially wasting down on that Norfolk squad.
Yeah, so this we call this a good problem to have from MLB team's perspective. Having that many good players, the issue that teams can run into, we call it prospect hugging. You cannot hug your prospects. Either call them up to the big league squad or they got to be trade bait. And this is where, yes, that lineup is disgusting. However, that pitching is awful for the Norfolk Tide. They have the second worst ERA in AAA with 8.17. So I think it's all pretty clear. They're going to need pitching here in the next future, or even today. They blew a few games over this past week. They're going to need pitching very soon. And like we said, Hurston Kjerstad, Kyle Stowers, those guys are going to be trade bait, and they are raising their value. And for the Orioles to eventually, by the deadline, because I assume I have them win the AL East, they're going to be competitive in the AL. They're going to use one of those guys to get a big time arm. That's my prediction.
Love it. Love it. I mean, they have to. They have to. They can't just sit here because the outfield's jammed up there
Yes.
with
So's the infield.
Yeah, the infield is too. So definitely a situation there to be monitoring as it goes forward.
Yeah, like I said, good problem to have, just can't prospect hug. All right, so moving on to our last topic of today's show. We mentioned earlier some players who got off to really good starts, but is it sustainable? So we have a little segment for you called Sustainable or Unsustainable. And we are going to start off with Jarren Duran. His performance, he is batting so far, just had it up, batting 462, one home run with a 1.007 OPS. Dylan, is Jarren Duran, his performance for the Boston Red Sox? They got off to a good start this year. Is that sustainable?
The Red Sox or Duran? Because I think, look, the Red Sox is not sustainable. I think Duran, you look at right here, this was a guy who broke into the league, and I'm like, oh, I have expectations. And then he whiffed. He struggled for 2 years. I'm like, yeah, this guy ain't it. But last year he turned it on, 290, kind of Ellsbury-ish in that lineup.
Yeah.
Maybe not as
Yeah.
much power that Ellsbury possessed, but I think he's kind of Ellsbury-ish. He's a trap guy.
That's
It's
a
a
good comp.
couple good years, and maybe he gets a paycheck from the Yankees. But
I
no,
hope not.
you look at Durant. I mean, just a left-handed stick, top of the lineup, great speed, gets on base. He is what Kelnick was supposed to be.
Boom.
So I think Jarren Duran to start the year has been off on a tear. And I will say this about Kelnick. We've been slamming a little bit. 545 so far in the regular season this year. So he's been on a tear.
Yeah.
But Duran, I think he is sustainable.
Okay, I'm going to side with unsustainable. I look at the arms he's been facing, that Oakland A's AAA team, Angels, bad rotation, bad pitching. He's gonna see better arms. I'm not taking away what Jarren Duran has done so far. Just looking at his future games coming up this year, and there's gonna be a lot better pitching in the AL East. And what he's gonna face with the Yankees and the Rays and the Orioles. I just don't think like at the level he's playing right now. Not saying he can't bat 270. But at this level right now, unsustainable on my end. Unsustainable. All right, moving on to your favorite Chicago Cubbies. Seiya Suzuki. He's been off to a hot start this year. Sustainable or unsustainable?
Here's where I'm going to go with Seiya. This guy's a big league superstar. He's a big league superstar. And it took one thing. You go back to last season. He had an up and down year. He was down to start the year, down in the middle, and then towards the end of the year, blast off. And it comes back to this. Kurt Casale for the Cincinnati Reds threw 2 innings against the Cubs last year. Is it Casale or Maile? Sorry, I get him confused. Luke Maile. He had 2 performances out of the bullpen, which is hilarious because the Cubs were thumping him. Seiya was in a struggle last year when he blasted a home run into the seats in the last of a game, and he goes, "That's it." Found his swing on facing a backup catcher. And from that point on, he was on a tear. He hit 326 in August, 370 in September. Power numbers off the charts, gap to gap, speed. He started playing like the player the Cubs thought they were getting when he came over from Japan 2 years ago. So now you look at him to start the year, 286, a couple homers, and he's going gap to gap. He's got 9 RBIs on the year, driving in runs. He's in a consistent spot in the lineup as well. David Ross would move him up and down. Council's like, nope, he's our two hitter. He'll hit behind Hap against righties, and he'll protect Bellinger, and he will hit second against lefties, right behind Nico, and right in front of Bellinger again. So he gets a consistent spot in the lineup, gets a ton of at bats, and he's been on a tear. This is going to be a superstar for years to come.
Yeah, I'm all in on Seiya Suzuki. What he's done so far this year and what he's done to what he did at the end of last year, he's starting to spray the ball around the field. And something that really points out to me is that he has you said how many RBIs? I just checked. It said he has 12 RBIs and
At
35
12.
ABs.
12.
Okay. So 12 RBIs and 35 ABs. He is knocking guys in. You guys get on base, you better be scared to face Seiya Suzuki with guys and runners in scoring position. That is a sight that I would not want to see as a pitcher. I'm going with sustainable from Seiya Suzuki. Love what he's done so far this year. I expect him to keep that up. Moving on to our last sustainable or unsustainable today. From one Japanese Cub to another Japanese Cub, Shota Imanaga. What do you think about him? Sustainable or unsustainable?
Sustainable in what we've seen to start the year, I'm going to say no. Strictly because, I mean, he hasn't given up an earned run. So you can't say that,
Right.
he has like pitched, like, of course he's pitched well. But I think here's what's going to get him. He's benefiting against in April here. He got out of a jam against the Dodgers, and he only pitched 4 innings, and the rain knocked him out of the start. So I'd say pump the brakes there a little bit. In his first start, the wind was blowing in at 25 miles an hour against the Rockies. So you're probably not giving up a lot of runs in that start either. This is a guy, come the warmer months, going to struggle with the long ball. He's going to give up a lot of home runs. You saw it in the World Baseball Classic. He was home run prone. So once it starts warming up, or once that Wrigley wind starts blowing out, he's gonna get shelled for a little bit. I do think what his start to the year is unsustainable, but I do think he's been exceeding my expectations in terms of what he can bring. I thought he would have a 5.5 ERA. That was my expectation going into the year, strictly because it's hard to translate from Japan. And I thought that his high home run totals would be crusher to start the year for him. But he's been great so far this year. I don't think it's sustainable.
Yep, I'm gonna have to agree with you again here. Probably unsustainable. Looking at what he did against the Dodgers in that type of lineup, that was impressive. That was impressive. Arguably the best lineup in all of baseball, and pretty much shut him down. Really good, really good. But as you mentioned, there are other factors that went into him pitching so well against the Dodgers. Like you mentioned, once we get into the summer months, once it gets warmer, once teams get full on tape on Imanaga, things are going to change a little bit. Doesn't throw all that hard. Is prone to give up some meatball pitches, we call. Might see a lot of long balls coming off the other end of Imanaga. I do like him though. Not taking anything away from his performance so far. Just think that when it comes to even like comparing him to Yoshinobu Yamamoto, probably going to side with Yamamoto, but Imanaga, he's gonna be a guy that can eat a lot of innings for the Cubbies. And hey, he may have some moments where he'll give you a complete game, one run or 2 run game. Maybe give you 7 innings of shutout innings. I think those spurts will be there, but what he's done so far, not giving up a run 10 innings, probably not sustainable there. Any other remarks?
I don't think so. I think you'd hit the nail on the head there about what he can bring to the table down the stretch.
All right, all right. Well, Dylan, hit that music. We appreciate you guys listening. We'll be back next week with some more baseball takes with all that's going on in the baseball world. If you're new to this channel, new to the podcast, subscribe, like, We appreciate all the support. Follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, X, Instagram. We'll be there posting content all week, every day for you guys. Appreciate the support, and we'll be back next time.